Welcome in to George in the Jungle. It is the very first episode here on the Bearcat Journal Network. Under the umbrella here, we have seen some shows come and go. We are continuously expanding, trying to give you everything that we can on a menu of options. But without further ado, I am Aaron Smith, and George Vogel is joining me here on George in the Jungle. George, I'm excited. I'm excited about this new project. I'm excited to be working with you and excited to see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, I'm fired up about it too. Should be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sorry to disappoint that I'm not in that leopard print singlet that was on the graphic. But I don't think anyone wants to see me in that thing. Trust me.
Maybe some years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I'll get you one of those if you'll wear it. I will.
I do some stuff now. I don't let too many dares go by.
Fair enough. Well, there's been a lot going on here in Cincinnati, and there's certainly plenty to talk about as the Reds are making a playoff push. Bengals season is right around the corner now that preseason is over. But it is Bearcat Journal Network, so it seems fitting that our very first segment should be about the Cincinnati Bearcats. So you had a chance to go to camp. You had a chance to get your eyes on a lot of new guys on the field. Just kind of curious, as Eastern Kentucky is a mere 5 days away.
Yep.
And it's an FCS team. I brought up last night on the Bearcat Bounce podcast that Scott Satterfield's been in a position before to take out Goliath as David. So I don't think he's taking this lightly at all. And I'm referring to when he was at Appalachian State and beat Michigan. But what do you want to see? What are you excited to see as they kick off on Saturday at 3:30 at historic Nippert Stadium?
Well, first of all, it's great that it's a sellout. It's going to be that environment that everybody, the Bearcats, EKU, they've got players from Cincinnati on that team, a handful of them, maybe a few more. It's just going to be incredible for all those people to be in that environment and have that much fun on a Saturday evening to kick off the season. It all begins with the quarterback play. We know that, and that's what all the eyes are going to be on, and see if Emory Jones can make that step to where he's now able to pass the ball with some efficiency. It hasn't been so consistent in the past. The day I saw him, he looked darn good, and he looked a lot better than he did in the spring. And, Coach Satterfield certainly attributed some of that he's got some people to throw to now. That makes a little bit of a difference than working with in the spring. And it seems like that wide receiver room is becoming a strength. We're going to find out. We may not find out Saturday against Eastern Kentucky, but as once they get the pit, play Miami, then Oklahoma rolls in, we're going to learn a lot quickly about this team. But I just want to see the quarterback have a handle on this offense, make the plays, don't make the big mistakes. And honest to God, they should win this game fairly handily. And I'm not taking anything from Eastern Kentucky. Really good FCS school, made the playoffs last year, have a terrific quarterback of their own who has all kinds of school records now and is coming back for, I believe this might be his sixth season. He's certainly got the experience, and maybe he hasn't seen a lot of what he's going to see Saturday night when that sellout crowd is there, but they'll get a little bit of a test. And as you said, Coach Satterfield's been on the other side of that equation. He knows what the mindset is of a team coming into that environment and getting a chance to, make a mark, get a scout, do something early in the season that gets everybody's attention and springboards your season into bigger and better things than you already expect. So, they're going to have to be ready for them. I think they will be. And I think your point is valid about Coach Satterfield knowing what it's like on that other side. And and he knows what it'll take to avoid that kind of an upset. And I think they have the horses to avoid that upset.
Now, you bring up Emory Jones as your first point. What are you looking for specifically out of Emory Jones? How much of the playbook do you want to see against an Eastern Kentucky team?
Yeah.
Knowing that Pitt is right around the corner, do you want to open it up a little bit to see what you got, or are you trying to not show your hand?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't want to show everything, but also you want to get this guy off and running. You want to get him going and coming out of the gate firing on cylinders and having that confidence that he can get it done and can get it done consistently. So I think whatever it takes to get it going and get that, if they have to open it up as they go along, if things aren't going the way they are and they're not able to buffalo them in the run game. And look, Eastern Kentucky gave up a lot of yards on the ground last year. That was their bugaboo. And if UC can just crank that running game up and keep it going and steamroll them that way, hey, that's fine with me. I'd like to see the kid make some throws and just get some confidence going, get something under his belt here before they go to Pittsburgh. But yeah, you don't want to open it all up. But by golly, if you have to, you better if you need it to win. But I just want to see Jones in control of that offense. I want to see that running game blow up like it should against Eastern Kentucky and just get out of there with a big win and be feeling good heading into Pittsburgh, because that's going to be the first really big test, I think, for this Bearcat team.
How's it make you feel today that Emory Jones and Pete Thomas both said in their pressers, I guess, that this is the best receiver room that either of them have been a part of?
I did not think I was going to hear that this year about 3-4 months ago. I'll tell you that right now.
I agree.
And I'll tell you, I was impressed with them at Higher Ground. I was very impressed with them. Yeah, they've got some guys there. They've got some playmakers, and it looks like, they've got the guys for the slot. They've got the guys for the outside. They've got some size. They certainly have some speed there. It's going to be exciting to see that play out, and they are in so much better shape than I thought they were going to be at wide receiver. Now, hopefully what those guys say is true. I expect the quarterback to certainly say that. Coaches, they don't like to throw it out there too much, but the fact that they are throwing it out there leads me to believe that they have a lot of faith in those guys, and that's a good thing coming into the season, because they're going to need it. They are going to need it with what they lost last year and what went to the NFL draft. It's tough to overcome that. It's tough to bounce right back. Thank God for the transfer portal, I guess, now in this day and age, that UC can replenish the way they were able to at that position. So I'm anxious to see it. And, we'll see where Evan Prater fits in that equation. The 2 deep comes out, the unofficial, and there he is,
right,
second string. And he merits that from what I saw out at Higher Ground.
I was going to say, you were there, and when you came on with us on the nightcap about a week and a half ago, or however long it was at this point, the days all run together.
Yeah.
But you spoke glowingly about Evan Prater, so I feel like you're probably the least surprised person right now that he's number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, I am, after what I saw. He showed a feel for the position. He showed, he just had that sense of what he's supposed to be, where he's supposed to be, and how he's supposed to do it. Contested catches, coming back to the ball. It's so easy for a guy to just sit there and wait for the ball to come to him, especially an inexperienced receiver. He's already coming back and grabbing that thing and turning it upfield. I was really impressed with him. So it's good that they're in this position. People ask me, what do you think of the Bearcats? Somebody asked me today, how are they going to be this? I don't know. I mean, it really, they are throwing a bunch of different ingredients in there. I think the defense is going to be awfully good. It's really nice when you have a defensive line and you look at that 2 deep and one of the guys allegedly second string, although they're going to rotate like crazy, I'm sure, Malik Van. I mean, how do you get a guy like that's not at the top of the chart? And that just tells you how good and deep this defensive line is.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a chance to look over the depth chart and the 2 deep, if you will. Any surprises there? Anything that stood out to you as you ran your eyes over it for the first time?
Well, you worry a little bit about the offensive line, and they've got experience starting, not so much right behind them. And those are guys I think that if what I understand to be the case, there's some people they can move around and play different positions. And so it's not just like, you're stuck. And if you see, an inexperienced player on the 2 deep, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the first guy off the bench at that position. But that's a little concerning, I think, when you look at it. But then on the flip side of that, when you see some of these guys that aren't starting and some of the talent they have, like I said, see, the Malik Van example, and then seeing, Evan as a second stringer. And then, you've got a guy, and I'm sure they're going to rotate those running backs too. A guy with the talent of Miles Montgomery, who's Corey Kiner listed number 1, but I got to think it's going to be a lot of interchangeable parts, hot hand playing, depending on, what the situation is, what the defenses are doing, whose strengths work best against that defense. They've got a lot of options there. And when you look at that 2 deep, there's a lot of options up and down. Just the only scary part, like I said, is the experience at offensive line. But, and you're not sure about these receivers yet. Yeah, talk is cheap. They look really good. It's practice, all that. We'll see where they are. But the eyeball test to me, I think they're in pretty good shape there.
I'm really excited to see what this offense has, and we've talked plenty about the offense, but I'm also excited to see what Brian Brown and this defense does. So as we switch gears a little bit, what are you looking forward to seeing on the defensive side with a guy there's been a lot of talk, not just locally, but nationally, about what Brian Brown was able to do last year at Louisville and how just a turnover machine. On the flip side of that coin, they also gave up some big plays. He's got a lot of returning pieces on the defense, especially compared to what the offense has returning, as it's just Gavin Gerhardt of the starters.
Yeah.
But what are you excited to see as far as the defense goes?
I want to see opposing quarterbacks with eyes this big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That guy turned it loose at Louisville with those guys up front. And I expect him to do the same here. And he's got the horses to do it. And I think they can wreak all kinds of havoc. What I saw them doing, against the run game in certain situations. And again, you're going against your own team, but they're stout. They're so stout. And we know who they've got up front. When you Corleone, Briggs, you just got Eric Phillips. I mean, they're stacked, Van. And, you bring in Dorian Jones. I mean, those linebackers are liable to have a lot of fun this year. Making tackles and running free to make plays because those guys up front present a lot of problems. So I want to see them get after it and get after it good, keep these offenses on their heels. It's going to be exciting because, as you brought up, the amount they did give up big plays, but the amount of turnovers they force. And I mean, I think I saw one game last year. I forget, I was reading about it, but they had like 3 interceptions in 1 quarter. And it's just stuff like that. And then, it just reminds me of this UC defense where they had those stout defensive backs, and they're not exactly weak there now either. They're still pretty darn strong back there.
Right.
It just makes me really look forward to what they can do when it comes to turning that ball over. Because if you get that quarterback on the run and you have him doubting himself and trying to make plays under pressure, a lot of good things can happen, especially when you have people with a nose for the ball like Deshaun Pace. I mean, it's just, he's got to be licking his chops back there with the way this front plays. No doubt about it.
I could not agree more, which brings me to my next question for you. We've talked plenty on our host of shows here on Bearcat Journal, but who do you think is going to have a bigger season? The 2 names that keep coming up are arguably Deshaun Pace or Dante Corleone. To George Vogel, who do you think is going to have a bigger season between those 2?
I think I'll get hammered for this. Last stuff, it's going to be Pace. I mean, he's going to take the ball back all the way for touchdowns. He's going to be blocking kicks and all the things he does. And that's just the nature of the beast with that position, as opposed to a guy in there, in a wrestling match on every down. And
Right.
Corleone is going to be a highly sought after NFL prospect. He's going to be big time, but you just don't see all that havoc every play. Like, it doesn't stand out as much maybe as a guy who's making, picks and deflecting passes and doing the things Deshaun does. And so I'll go with him, but my God, that's like saying,
It's like picking which one of your kids is your favorite.
Brunette.
We talked about this some, George. What Pace has done, and one of the staples of college football right now is getting the ball out quick and getting it in the flat and getting it to a running back and letting them cook. And Deshaun Pace almost every time destroys that play.
Yeah.
Like, he is so fast when he changes direction and zeroes in on that ball in the air, even though it's only in the air for 6-7 yards?
Right.
He just explodes.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like every practice you see him where in a real game, it's going to be super violent.
Right.
In practice, he kind of, they ease up a little bit, but I'm with you. Like, the number, like, Corleone is going to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
He's going to absorb double teams. He's going to push the pocket back. Like, he's going to have a big year, but some of it, Satterfield even said it today, is going to be stuff that isn't on the stat sheet.
Right. No, that's totally that's that position, man.
And I think Pace is just going to do so much that's on the stat sheet that is just, and even if it's not on the stat sheet, we're going to be on this show and on every show on this network talking about it going, can you believe how bad DP lit that guy up in the flat?
I wonder what it was like in that house. The last quarter was on the plate. Like, what in the world went on there? I would have liked to have been a fly on that wall with him and his brother. I mean, my God, they got a nose for the ball. They hit. I mean, they're sledgehammers when it comes to hitting for their size. I'm telling you what, that had to be a lot of fun to watch them going at it.
Yeah, I can't imagine what those fights were like between Ivan and Deshaun. Just
surprising they've made it this far.
You need to call off school.
Oh my gosh.
But it's good to see Coleraine having that type of success. We're arguing over which Coleraine player is going to have the bigger impact for your Cincinnati Bearcats. So I think that's just a hat tip to what Luke Fickell and his staff, and now we're seeing Scott Satterfield and his staff continue on with the hometown heroes, largely led by a holdover, which has been Kerry Combs.
Yeah, and Coleraine has had a tremendous impact on this program for a long time. They've had players, you go back 20, 25 years, and they've had guys that have made their mark at UC. And not to disparage, I mean, there's East Side kids too, but the West Side's produced a lot of good players for UC over the years. LaSalle's done a nice job too, stocking that Bearcat program. So, something about that part of town, man. They love UC, and boy, when they show up in a Bearcat uniform, they seem to get it done.
Not that you're biased or anything, right?
No bias at all. I grew up on the East Side, but it was I tell people I was so far east, it was like the West Side. It was almost like the other side of the world. Far east.
That's fantastic. What do you expect the over-under to be? Last night, I think we put it at like 29.5. Would you take the over or the under if it was set at 29.5?
29.5 for
Cincinnati.
Points,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to take the over on that. I think
so
had success on the run game. Yeah.
You expect it to be
over on the season. Is that total still 4.5?
It moved to 5.5 shortly after 4.5. It was
okay. God,
days. It was only days before it moved to 5.5.
Okay,
I think it's still at 5.5. Personally, I've put my floor at 6 wins and my ceiling at 8 wins for this team.
Yeah. I can see 7-8 wins for sure. I know that sounds. I mean, if I go down and start marking them, there's a couple of, I don't know.
There's some coin
and
flips
you don't
for
know.
sure.
I mean, let's face it. Every year you come into a season, and this happens in the NFL too. You remember the year a couple of years ago when UC played at Indiana. We thought Indiana was going to be a darn good team that year, and they had some issues. You just don't know until the season unfolds. There's going to be surprises of teams that are a lot better than you thought they would be, and teams that just, for whatever reason, fall flat and don't get it done. But I can see them. I can see 7 or 8 wins. I really can. I think they are definitely being underestimated coming into the season. And I get the naysayers because you do have a coaching change. And
Right.
when you're seeing that from afar and, you're not necessarily paying attention to everything that's coming back on defense and what they have up front, you're just looking a new coach. Oh, Luke Fickell won big there. He left for Wisconsin. They're screwed. And they got this guy from Louisville. He had some success, but not that great overall. And, I see where they're coming from with why they say that, but they're just not as in tune as people here in town are to what's actually going on there and what they've done. And then, to see how they've recovered nicely in the transfer portal with some positions that they really needed help on. I still wish there could have been a little bit more on the offensive line, but I'm one of those guys. I'm always worried about the line. We'll talk about the Bengals. I'll be worried about the line. I'm telling you, I'll be worried about line depth. We saw how it crushed them last year. So I'm a worry wart when it comes to offensive lines because honestly, I said it starts with the quarterback. It really starts with the offensive line, every offense. I mean, yes, the quarterback is huge. He handles the ball every play, all that. But if you don't have a line, we've seen many a good quarterback. Great quarterbacks in the NFL who couldn't do squat-ola because their line sucked. And until they get a competent line, they're not able to do the things that they're good at doing. So that's why I worry about the line so much. But back to the original point that I strayed way far away from. Yes, we're going over on that win total, and we're going over on points this week.
All right. Well, we'll see what the line opens up at. I don't believe it's actually opened up at this point. In the chat here, it says you can apparently get 4.5 on Caesars for -125 still. On FanDuel, the odds are a little worse at -138. So you still apparently can get that 4.5 if you're looking to make some quick money.
I think I will.
There you go. The last question I have for you about the Bearcats, it's a whiteout apparently. Are you surprised that it's a whiteout, being that we've only seen the black jerseys at this point? We have not even seen white jerseys yet. And are you excited to see? Are you excited to see the field with the new stuff on it? I know that there's been pictures, obviously, with TQL and the Big 12 on there. I'm excited to see it personally. I'm also excited to see if they do wear white on white on white, or if they do, some type of combo with the black in there. But it's going to be, I believe, 87 degrees or somewhere thereabouts on Saturday. I don't blame them for going all whites if that's the route that they go.
Yeah, I don't blame them one bit for that. I guess, I don't know. I guess will it be white on white on white? That'll be interesting.
If it's a whiteout for the fans, I would be shocked if they didn't go.
That's what they should do, I guess. I'm so partial to those black helmets, though. It's unbelievable. I just am so partial to those. But I get it. And whatever those kids get excited for to come out there and do and see and play in, I'm all for. And yes, I remember when UC, when it was announced, they were going to the Big 12, and then the next home game, there was that Big 12 flag in the stands. And I think the cheerleaders had it for a while. And it's like, man, oh man, I know, good old AAC is not happy about that, but that's just the way it is. But to see it actually, the logo planted on the field, and know that time has come, that's going to be great to see. There is no question about it.
Do want to thank Hunter for the donation. Hunter asks, I don't understand all the hype for Central Florida and the just disrespect the Bearcats are getting for this season. Do I just not know ball? Thoughts, George?
No, I can see where he's coming from there, and I think UCF's getting a lot of respect. Mainly, their coach has got his feet wet down there now. They feel like he's getting things rolling. Not that it's going to help him a heck of a lot this year, but they've been hitting it out of the park recruiting wise. For the class coming up. And Central Florida was pretty darn good last year. This guy's doing a good job down there. Gus is doing a pretty good job down there, and I think that that Bearcat game in November, that's going to be a war. I think by the time they get to that thing, they could be playing for something there. That's going to be interesting to see how Central Florida holds up during the season. But he's right. Central Florida is getting a lot of respect, and I don't know, maybe it's a little over the top for them, and UC's kind of getting a little bit of disrespect here. But
the media picked UC. Media picked UC at 13, so I'd certainly call that a little disrespect.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It is a lot of disrespect, to be honest. But again, it's people who don't live here. They know the coach left. The big successful coach went to Wisconsin. They bring in this guy that was at Louisville. They lost some guys, and they just that's just how, unfortunately, it works. Should it work that way? No. Heck no, it shouldn't. But that's
personally, I'm excited about it, though. I'd rather they be coming in with that type of a chip on the shoulder. This team is built to have a chip on their shoulder.
Absolutely. And this city is, and the Bengals do a good job of using that stuff. And I mean, think about that. In the NFL, there are no secrets, or there shouldn't be. And they still, last year, had to put up with some stuff. And some of it, Zach might make a little more out of it than it is. But his team thrives off of it. So that's why he does it. And people do thrive when they feel like they've been disrespected or not a lot is expected of them. They'll it's human nature to just buck up and prove people wrong. And I don't have a problem with that.
Well, it sounds like you're ready to switch gears. So let's switch over to the Bengals as the preseason is ended. It is officially over behind us. There have been a couple games in the preseason, not for the Bengals, but a couple games that were canceled due to injury. Apparently that's a thing now that we're going to have to see. I hope we don't ever see anything like that in the regular season again. But the 53-man has been officially announced. We have seen what it looks like today. Who knows what it looks like tomorrow as the waiver wire will open up, and first you'll have free agents, I suppose. I don't know that there's an actual waiver wire.
Yeah, there is. There's guys that the Bengals cut today that will be exposed to waivers, and other teams can claim and put them on their 53-man, and the Bengals vice versa. If they, see something at a position they feel like it's an upgrade, they can grab a guy off there and throw him right on their 53, and then somebody else gets cut. There's different categories. Like some of the guys the Bengals cut are not exposed to waivers, so they can just
I think that's where I get confused on it. I don't understand.
It's so confusing. If I can't think, I don't have it figured out. Trust me. But I just happen to find the right strain of stuff today. It's like, well, wait a minute. This guy is a free agent, can do what he's not exposed to waivers, but these guys are. The safety they cut. Michael Thomas is a guy who will not be exposed to waivers. So if he would rather re-sign with the Bengals, and it's foreign to me too that a 10, 11-year veteran or whatever it is can be on the practice squad.
Well, only a couple years ago, you weren't eligible. You had to only be
right.
Certain guys were only eligible to be on the practice squad.
The NFL's got more money than God, so it does cost them more money to do this, but it's the right thing to do. So these teams do have a stockpile because injuries are a big part of the game, and those guys can still get signed to a 53-man roster all over the league. But I think the NFL has it right in this thing where they let you put veterans on there. I think you can get like maybe 6 of them or something on there that are just, outright veterans that you can put on there, and they make a little more money than your standard practice squad guy. I think your standard guy gets like $11,500 a week or something that he's on there. So it's very interesting, but I think this is good for the NFL. I think they did the right thing here because, there's just so many injuries, and then you're grabbing guys off the streets that they have no idea what you do defensively or offensively, what your schemes and your game plans and your plays are and your language. And it just really helps the game. It certainly helps the teams, the coaches. I think it's the right thing to do to have that 16-man practice squad, which in the old days they called it the taxi squad.
Well, now the baseball's taking that lingo.
Yeah, they did take that lingo. That was the right thing for them to do too, actually.
I agree.
It really was. It helps the game, and you're not just picking up some guy who's, working at a financial firm one day, and then he comes in and has to learn your defenses and all that stuff. And it's good to have guys in-house that are being trained, that are working out, they're ready to go. It's just plug and play when you have an injury. So, and it's 16 guys. That's a good stock of talent to have. Hell, the Bengals, they even put a quarterback on there. Simeon may come back and be on that practice squad. I'm not sure, but
let's hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. You do want to have another quarterback around. And,
I get it.
Well,
and I was going to ask you, I'm looking at the quarterback position, and obviously you're set as long as Joe Burrow is healthy.
Yep.
Some weird questions coming out of the media today in regards to Joe Burrow and whether he was sitting out because of contract or any of that. There's been weird omens from the stadium with the green lighting going on. People have theorized that could be that they've been working on the contract, and that's why the stadium's been green. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, it's a cesspool. George. Yeah. I don't know how often you're on Twitter, but it's.
I peruse it. Yeah, I go through it. I'm not one of those looking at my phone all the time, scrolling through. But at night, I'll kind of catch up on a couple things and maybe search a term or two of something I'm interested in, sports related. It may just be Bengals. Just type Bengals, and then you'll see what some of the latest scuttlebutt is.
Do you want
anything about green lights at the stadium though?
Yeah, that was a thing that was happening this week. A couple
That's
different
hilarious.
Nights. Yeah.
God dang. I mean, people read into everything, don't they?
Absolutely.
They really do.
So I personally don't want to see Trevor Siemian come back. I'd rather they make a move for whether it be a rookie like a Max Duggan who's going to be available, whether they bring in a guy like a Bailey Zappi who's going to be available. Do you want them to make a move at that position, or do you feel comfortable with Browning at the 2 spot and Siemian potentially on the practice squad?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. If Burrow goes down, it's trouble no matter what.
There goes the season, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But I got to give Browning a lot of credit. I got to give that kid all the credit in the world to scramble the way he has, on practice squads, kept getting better, kept showing up, kept doing what he's supposed to do. And he had a pretty darn good preseason for the Bengals. Looked pretty good, won that job outright. And God bless the Bengals for recognizing that and not just going with the guy who's got veteran NFL experience and feeling comfortable. They were able to say, you know what? This kid won the job. He earned it. Hadn't played in the NFL, but by golly, he's going to be our guy because he just showed us what he can do. So I give him credit for that. But you got to have that third quarterback hanging around somewhere.
Yeah.
And if they take a flyer on one of the guys you said, if they're comfortable getting somebody like that up to speed.
Jake Fromm, we just saw him. There's another one.
Yep. If they're comfortable and like that, what that guy has to offer better, sure, go for it. Go for it. I'm proud of Jake Browning to do what he did and get it done the way he did and go out there and perform and grind the way he did just to get this chance and to get this job. So that's really cool to see. Those are just little things that kind of catch my eye and it's easy to root for people like that. It really is. But yeah, they're gonna have to have somebody stashed somewhere, but we'll see which way they go. They had Brandon Allen sticking around for a few years, got comfortable there, and I can see why. He knew Zach's offense, he knew what he wanted, he knew what he demanded from the position, and was able to handle it somewhat competently. And I feel good about their ability to look and find talent and believe in it and be right has been pretty darn good over the past several years. It really has. I don't know if I don't think it's just a matter of they were due and things are starting to work their way. I think it's just they have found a way to judge talent, judge character and people that translates onto the football field and into the entire organization. I give them credit. That's a well-tuned machine down there right now, and they're just moving and moving. They kept every draft pick this year. We'll see if that works out, but obviously they know what they're doing when it comes to judging talent. They may have the youngest roster in the league now. They may have the youngest roster or close to it in the league after what they've done. And if that's the case and you're a Super Bowl contender, wow, that's pretty strong. They've got to have other rosters.
Definitely a good problem to have, at least the way that the roster is currently built. You mentioned earlier you're nervous about the offensive line. Well, they kept 10 instead of 9.
Yeah, I like that.
They opted for the extra lineman over Trent Taylor. They opted for the extra lineman over Stanley Morgan. They opted for the extra lineman over a Michael Thomas, as you mentioned earlier. Even a Raymond Johnson, a Jeffrey Gunter, some other names that flashed a little bit in the preseason. What are you feeling on the offensive line? Because you also have La'el Collins, who's on the PUP and is eligible to come back in 4 weeks, I think is.
He can. I don't know if he'll be ready then or not. That was a late season injury. That's an injury that, I don't mean this to be disparaging, but the bigger you are, the harder it's probably to come back from that injury that way and be,
Not only that, but if he comes back and he isn't 100%, like once his PUP eligibility runs up, the Bengals may just cut bait because they don't lose a ton in cap space at that point. The way that
that's true.
The way that the contract was built, he has to actually play in the games.
Right.
So, and if you have him dressing but not actually starting, I don't know that I'd be spending the money on La'el Collins comparatively to
that's
the
a
other
good
guys
point.
that you have in the roster.
That's a very valid point. And we'll see, we'll see how Jonah does at right tackle too. And if he anchors that down well and does well,
sure.
You know what? Then yeah. You're talking about a former first round pick there who's got some talent, may not have been, this may be a blessing for him because he was balking at first, it seemed like, about making that move to right tackle.
Yeah.
And then shows up, okay, I'll give it a go. This could be a good thing for his career.
Well, obviously, you want the left tackle money, right? If it's up to you as a player, absolutely. You want the left tackle money, not the right tackle money.
He's going to get that based on the play.
That's a good point.
I don't know. Right. I think this could work out for him. Hopefully it does, because if it does, it works out for the Bengals. And then I look, as long as you got those guys that they have now starting healthy, you're fine. And they were fine last year. It started off shaky. You remember that beginning of the year last year. I don't know what was going on. It looked like they couldn't block anyone the first couple of games.
They didn't play together. You have to remember that was a brand new offensive line, and none of them played together in the preseason.
And I'm going to tell you something I was wrong about. I was wrong in that I didn't have a big problem with that because it's like they're veterans. Karras is a veteran. Cap is a veteran. Collins is a veteran. Those guys, you can take them out on the field, let them run together for one afternoon, and they're going to have it, right? Well, apparently wrong. Apparently wrong. I thought they would be able to come together and do it fairly quickly because of their being veterans, but it did take them a while to get that thing going. And Collins, in his defense, was still hurt with that back injury coming out of camp. He wasn't as well off as they would have liked, but he was better than what they had, so they put him out there, and he started and did what he could, and God bless him for doing the best he could. But it obviously wasn't working either. But they got that straightened out. And I think now with those guys in there, that's got the makings for a darn good line. I mean, you take that line and Vincent played well as a rookie. Now you got Orlando Brown thrown in there at left tackle. I mean, my God, they've got the makings for a really good offensive line. And I feel good that they have that depth too, because quite honestly, that line stays together last year and those guys don't get injured late in the season, they're probably back in the Super Bowl. I really believe that.
Yeah, well, a couple calls go a couple different ways. You can play shoulda, coulda, woulda all day. But
yeah, I know. But that's why that depth is important. And boy, it got tested last year, man. They really were just they were flipping coins there late in the season and going into the playoffs and did the best they could. They really, actually the line played well up at Buffalo. A lot of people thought that was just because of the conditions and the snow and, the pass rush wasn't able to get off as well. I don't know about all that. I thought I thought they played well, but then you go to Kansas City and you're out there with all that noise and Chris Jones breathing down your neck. That's a different animal.
Look, if he's out all season on this, I don't want to play because I want to be. I'm totally fine.
I'm cool with that too.
Totally fine with it.
That's right. It's so funny. I just saw the quarterbacks, the Netflix quarterback series. I was watching that. I just saw the Super Bowl thing the other night, and he was talking to Mahomes after the game. We'll do it again. So we'll see. It was kind of interesting.
We will see. Defense, I don't think there were a ton of surprises here on defense. Joe Bacci gets another shot. Last year, his shot ran a little short because of the injury. Tufele, is that how you say his name? Jay Tufele?
Yeah.
He gets the nod there. I guess you could call that a surprise. I think that you probably were just looking at depth at defensive tackle, if you ask me.
Right. He's done okay for them. And Tupo's played well.
I don't know that there's a ton of surprises here on the defense as far as cuts go outside of maybe Michael Thomas.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Tyson Anderson, man, I mean, even last year, before he got hurt, he looked pretty darn good, and he played well this year. He had the 2 picks in the Packers game. I was kind of a fan of his last year before he got, I think it was hurt in the preseason. And then watching him again this year, I thought, man, that I don't want to have to make that call, but they didn't want to send that guy out on the streets because he would have gotten snapped up for sure by somebody. I mean, that's a young guy that's showing some serious talent, showing a nose for the ball. He's got speed. I like that kid. That's a tough one for them, but Thomas acts like he's ready to come back and be on that practice squad and help any way he can. In fact, I read it, but he gave Tyson his jersey number after the game in Washington the other night.
That's interesting.
Kind of almost like a passing of the torch thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the secondary. You lose both your starting safeties in the offseason, and you fill in with Dax Hill and Nick Scott as your starters there. You have Wouzier coming back. You have Cam Taylor-Britt, who I think is going to be a star.
Oh, yeah. Time. He's looked nothing but good. Tackling, coverage. I mean, he's got the whole package, it looks like.
I think that this defense, I know it's Madden.
Don't forget Mike Hilton, too. That guy's played really well for them.
I know it's Madden. Madden only has them rated as an 89, so I'm a little homer on and a little bullish on this defense. But I don't know that this isn't a 90 plus. If you're giving it a number rating, I don't know. This isn't a 90 plus defense.
Well, we talk about things getting disrespected. This defense never gets talked about. I mean, they don't. They just go out there and do the job.
And I'm okay with that because it means that Lou is still here. yeah,
exactly. Thank you, Arizona, for not hiring that guy.
Right. Arizona's a shit show.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It totally is. And I'll tell you what, in a way, I'm happy for him that he didn't step into that mess too.
Yeah.
I know he wants a shot, and he probably deserves a shot. But the Bengals able to have that continuity of head coach, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, all these years running while they're having this success is unbelievable. And I got to think another big year, and that defense plays as well as you expect. And I think they'll have a good year too. I think they're underrated. I don't understand. I know you look at Cincinnati and it's Burrow throwing the chase and Higgins and Boyd and, you know, all this other stuff going on with the offense. But daggone, that defense is darn good. And maybe that's part of the reason it gets overshadowed. But I tell you, if they have another good year, I don't want Lou to go, but by golly, if somebody deserves a head coaching job in this league right now, it's that dude. I mean, he has done nothing but pull the right string time after time after time with what they do on this defense, the Super Bowl run. And it was so – it's like any time during that Super Bowl run, and even in the playoffs we saw it, they need a big play. They need a turnover. They need some – that defense came up with it. You look at the end of the Raiders game when they're driving down the field, they're in the red zone, and Pratt gets that pick. You go to Kansas City, and they go to overtime, and they get that pick. I mean, just time – heck, they got the turnover in Tennessee too. It's like every time they needed a big play out of that defense, they got it. That was an amazing run for that defense, and they didn't get a lot of credit for that. And quite honestly, they were pretty darn good last year too. And I'm on your train. I think that defense is going to be pretty good.
In the chat, which team in the AFC North do you see as the biggest threat to the Bengals this year?
You know what I'm going to say? I think the Steelers might surprise me.
Oh, you're going to say it.
I think Pickett might make the second-year leap. They're quietly doing some good things. I don't think it's going to be Cleveland. I don't know what's going to happen up there. And
they don't either.
You know, I mean, I know I just had a fantasy draft where I ended up with a couple of Baltimore players again that I didn't really want, but I just had to because it made the most sense at the time. But I don't know. I don't – to me – you know, Harbaugh's done a good job there and all that, but that team, something last year started with the whole Lamar Jackson situation. It just didn't feel right. And what happened with him, and I know they think they fixed that situation, but, you know, when he didn't even show up for that game here in Cincinnati, I just thought there's just something not right about that whole deal. And we'll see. I could be wrong. They could end up being the you know, the biggest issue for the Bengals, but I'm going to say the Steelers. I think they've quietly done some good things. We know what that coach does up there somehow. You know, for a while there, he was doing it with smoke and mirrors.
This season might still be smoke and mirrors, truthfully. But
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I think Pickett might make that leap in the second year. And, you know, he looked good in the preseason. So, we'll see. Do I think they're better than the Bengals? No, but I think that's the team that would give them the run.
Fair enough. I don't have anything left on the Bengals unless you have any other points you wanted to make.
No, I'm just excited to see them get going. And I expect them to go up to Cleveland and clean house, actually. I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's just too it doesn't work that way in the NFL. Every game comes down to a couple of plays.
It doesn't work that way in the AFC North. The AFC North is crazy.
It doesn't. But I'm expecting a lot, like a lot of people expecting a lot. I just saw today, NFL Network, a guy has them going 14-3, starting the season 13-1. Now, I'm not going that far, but I think they're going to be in the mix for that home field advantage in the playoffs, that number one seed. So that's all I got on that. But they are only a 2-point favorite in that game in Cleveland right now.
Unbelievable. Well, because you don't know if Joe's back. If Joe's not back, though, I understand it. Like that line makes sense if Joe's not back.
I will be absolutely shocked if he's not back. I mean, I think it's just And it's not like last year where he's coming back. It was the appendectomy last year, right? Is that
Right.
what it was?
Yeah.
And then he had to put weight back on. That wasn't happening with this injury. He was able to still do a lot of stuff. It wasn't like he's recovering from surgery or any of that. So I think he'll be ready to go, with the first snap. And I think we'll see the good old Joe out there in Cleveland.
So George says, hammer that -2 while you can.
There's a reason I don't bet many football games anymore, okay? That gives you a hint how I was at picking these lines.
All right. And switching gears one more time, the Cincinnati Reds, actually, I think they're still in the first inning here.
Oh, yeah, they did just start.
Yep. They have it's been a little rough of late. Ever since the All-Star break, in my opinion, this team's been a little different. I oftentimes find myself hating the All-Star break because I feel like this happens to a lot of hot teams where they have that 5 days off or whatever it is at this point, and just something is off afterwards. The Cincinnati Reds have been a prime example of that this season. The last 10 games, they are 4-6. This road trip out to the West Coast has not been kind, as is pretty traditional at this point for the Cincinnati Reds. Death taxes and the Reds struggling out on the West Coast.
That's how it's going.
Right now, they're 7 games back in the Central, and for the wild card, they're currently sitting 1.5 games back behind San Francisco, who is half a game back, and Arizona, who's currently in. Shocker. Matt McClain goes down, we found out, with a oblique strain, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
And currently on the 10-day IL. Not good. Not good.
No, they're leaking oil. They're leaking oil bad right now. And, they had a chance to really, really put a stamp on this, chase for a wild card on this trip. And it just went the other way. Pitching, man, starting pitching. And, you cut Luke Weaver and then you find out Lodolo may not pitch all year, which he won't now, I'm sure. They did nothing to shore that up other than stand pat. I know teams were going to hold him up at the deadline. I wish there would have been something they could have done to get a guy or two to eat some innings.
So I see your point there, and I'm going to raise you what's been all of the hullabaloo on Twitter today, which is the fact that the Angels, the guy that they picked up from the White Sox, at the deadline, Giolito, they've made him available on waivers, and Cincinnati would have a waiver pick above many of these teams that they are behind because they are behind. So you have an opportunity potentially to go after him and pay what is left of his salary this season.
And that's a no-brainer to me. I mean, that's just a no-brainer.
Unless you're not trying to spend money. So we're going to find out if they're actually serious.
With this payroll, they've got money to spend. I'm telling you right now, if they don't go out and get a couple hammers this offseason, whether it's by trade, whether it's by free agency, whatever, they've got a lot of guys on very, 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 very club-friendly deals that they have control of, right? Minimum.
The whole roster.
Correct.
Joey comes off your books.
Correct.
The whole damn roster.
Exactly. And I haven't been, one of those leading the charge that this ownership group, and look, they've had a bad run. And they've brought on all the grief they've gotten, or a lot of it. But they've got to do something this offseason that gets that pitching fixed. And it's not just praying to God that Hunter Green gets better, Lodolo comes back strong, and Ashcraft, continues to do what he can do, and Abbott and Williamson feel that they've got to get a veteran or two, I would say two. They got to get some guys that do what. Now, I'm going to get crucified for this, but when they brought in Trevor Bauer and had Sonny Gray, they need guys like that know how to freaking pitch. That's what you need. You can't. DJ does a great job. I respect him a lot. He's going to know more about pitching than I couldn't expect to know in 10 lifetimes. But they have got to fix this. They've got great talent now. They've got talent all over that field. Scoring runs is not the issue for this team, although it has been in August. I mean, they've lost a lot of games where they've scored 3 or less runs. It's not, but you're relying on a bunch of young guys. And look, they all have talent. McLean's got talent. De La Cruz has talent. Steer's a keeper. We'll see about Marte and Encarnacion Strand, but by golly, they've got enough guys.
Benson's a keeper.
I mean, he's fulfilling that promise. Former first-round pick of the Indians, who actually, outside of maybe a batting average in the Cleveland system, but all of the rest of his numbers were pretty darn good when he was healthy, and he showed a lot of promise. And now that he stayed healthy and got a chance to play, he's getting it done. So, look, they got to go out, get a hammer or two, I would say 2. And if that means you got to wheel one of these young pitchers, you wheel one of these young pitchers. You know what I mean? You can't have 5 first and second year guys and expect you're going to go to the playoffs that are in your rotation. And God knows what they're going to do the rest of this season, who they're going to throw out there. I mean, because I don't know if Abbott's hitting a wall. There's a lot of talk about that because he's 20-some innings now above anything he's thrown before. Brandon Williamson's getting close to where he's, more innings than he's ever thrown. And he tried not to go, 30 above the season before on a young guy. I don't know who they're going to have out there. They'll bring up that dude that pitched for the Ducks, the Kennedy guy that pitched, and he pitched for the Long Island Ducks this year.
Brian Kennedy?
Yeah, he was good for them when he came up. And I don't know if they'll bring Connor Phillips up. I don't know what his inning situation is. I haven't looked that far into it, but they're running out of pitching, and they didn't have a lot to begin with.
I was upset they didn't make a run at Dallas Keuchel.
Yeah.
I think right now you could even kick the tires on a Noah Syndergaard. It's not going to be worse than what you have currently.
Oh.
Maybe you wait until I wouldn't want to pay necessarily what his contract currently is for the rest of the season. I don't know that he'd necessarily be worth that. If you can sign him to a different contract and not eat whatever is due him the rest of the season. But I don't know. I think
at
that
this point you're looking at a month of that or whatever the heck.
Right. Sure.
You know what I mean?
But I guess I'll be upset if they had a waiver claim over a team that ends up with Giolito, if they didn't make a run at that. There's another guy, if for no other reason, just to allow your bullpen a chance to breathe.
Right.
Because
exactly.
the bullpen has been a godsend this season. They're I don't know where they came from.
Done that with chewing gum and kite string, man. I mean, they really have. I mean, you got Cruz pitching the way he's been pitching lately.
Yeah.
And those guys are just getting gassed all the time. They're out there. I mean, it seems like every time I look up, Lucas Sims is in the game, and if it's not him, it's Jabot, and it's just like
Buck Farmer.
Buck Farmer. Yeah, he's always out there. We'll get off this podcast, and I'll expect to see him on the television in there.
Probably, honestly.
But it never. They really set themselves up for failure with. And I will say this, though. At the beginning of the year, I thought the only way they would compete, and this is funny, the only way they compete is if those big three were those big three. Green, Lodolo, Ashcraft, if they carried the team. 2 of them they haven't had most of the season, Lodolo and Green. And yet look where they were. They were in the race.
Because
of
the bullpen.
Yeah. Well, they've got to get this thing right. And to me, they also have to get Hunter Green right. Look, there's a lot of talent there. We know how electric his arm is, but you can't throw a ball 101 miles an hour that just goes straight as an arrow. I don't know if there's a grip difference. I don't know what you do. There's got to be something to make that ball run a little bit, right?
Yeah, like Cowboy says, like Cowboy says, it was right down Broadway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right out over the wall. Like,
oh my God, it's been batting practice since he came back from that hip injury, and I feel bad for the kid, but they've got to figure that out. We know what, and who knows? Maybe they run off 12 in a row after we sit here and bash them, and they're back in this thing. But
Be great with that.
I think it's going to be really hard without McClain in that lineup, but you just never know. The baseball's a strange game. That year the Rockies made that run. Somebody made a hell of a run last year. I can't even remember now, but it's just you never know. When a team starts reeling them off, they can get back in it in a hurry. But I don't expect it. But if you're a diehard Reds fan, you can hope. But I just don't think the pitching's there. I just don't see how.
Well, and this team's, they've raised expectations on their own. That's their fault that we're actually believing in them. They're 2 years. They're 2 years ahead of the plan.
Oh, totally. It's been fun to watch. I mean, watching these kids come up and do what they've done has been fantastic. And I felt like all alone when they were stacking this talent last year at the deadline, when they made those deals on it, it's like, okay, don't expect anything next year. 2024, that's when they should be able to compete. Now they do have it right in front of them. They got to have a good offseason and get some pitching in here. And if they don't, it's, malpractice times 10 because it's right there for them. It's not hard to figure out.
With McClain going to the IL, do you bring Jose Barrero up?
I don't know what else you do. I mean, why not?
I think you have to. I think you have to. Unless you can pick somebody up who is proven off of waivers,
right?
And you plan on spending money. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath on that, but
no, I'm not. No, not based on what you've seen. No, but yeah, get him up here. Who knows? Maybe he catches fire and he's worth something in the off season, but I doubt it.
Do you think we see Jonathan India back this year?
I say it's very unlikely.
I agree.
Very unlikely. I mean, if they got in the mix down there the last couple of weeks and he's really healthy, okay. But otherwise, there's just I doubt it. How much do you think that made a difference for them? Because,
huge
talent. You're right. Exactly. Talent-wise and all that, these kids came up, they were hot and stuff. But that guy is certainly a big part of what was right with this team.
Yeah. And then you have him going out and seeking a second opinion outside of the team's doctor. That's concerning.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So I don't know. I don't know if Jonathan India has worn a Reds jersey for the last time. I don't know if we'll see him before the end of the season. There's a lot of question marks around young Jonathan India.
Yeah, there is. There is a lot. I mean, I see both sides of this, and I mean, my God. He was the guy that got this thing going back in spring training, telling these guys we're not going to take it. We're going to go out and we're going to make some noise. And, once they got past April and things started, I mean, he really was stirring that drink every night, one way or the other, whether he was in the game or not. He's in that dugout, getting everybody stirred up. Excited for everybody. I think the world of that guy and what he's done this year. And I really, really wish he hadn't gotten hurt.
Well, you bring up him being a difference maker. I think that I know the knock on him is that he doesn't play a good second base defensively.
Correct.
But I don't know that what I've seen thus far of Elly De La Cruz is that I like him at shortstop over Matt McClain. So ideally, you would have had Elly at third, where I thought he actually played outstanding.
Yeah, he did play well there.
By comparison to shortstop, you have McClain at short, you have India back at second. I don't know that Spencer Steer, I love that he can play everywhere.
Right.
I think he may end up being a better Kyle Farmer than Kyle Farmer was. Sorry for all the farmer fanatics, but I love that he can plug and play pretty much anywhere on the field.
He's a baseball player. I mean, that dude's unbelievable.
But I don't know. I think that if India was healthy, was here, I think that changes the whole outlook on this team. Marte has struggled. Maybe you don't have to keep him up and he can go back down, fine-tune some of his mechanics a little bit, at least as far as hitting the ball goes.
Right. It's interesting because not every guy can come up and play at this level and have immediate success and not miss a beat or take a step back. And I know the Reds were really really second guessing themselves on Barrera when they brought him up and then started struggling. And they're like, my God, this kid was all world. Did we ruin him?
And so he's back at it now.
Yeah. They started having second thoughts about bringing these other guys up. And people are like, why aren't they bringing this guy up? Why aren't they? Well, that's why they weren't. And then they did. They succeeded. So then I think they got a little more comfortable in bringing everybody up. And now you wonder if they brought up too many of them. I don't know. But Marte's going to be good. I mean, he just looks the part to me. He's got a little bit to do, defensively. I think there's been a little bit of shakiness. But by no means do you make a judgment based on, what we've seen in a short period of time.
Joey Votto, does he come back this season?
I doubt it.
Have we seen Joey Votto for the last time?
Probably. I think for him to shut it down, and as much as he knows what's going on, and he knows this might be it, I don't think he ever – I think if he had anything left in the tank, he would still be giving it a go. And maybe he thinks a few weeks off, and maybe he will be back. I don't know. I hope for his sake he is. I really do. I would hate to see it in that way for him because I don't see how you have him on the roster next year. I just don't.
I agree.
Don't. I mean, there's just no way to do it. You can't pay him the $25 million. You pay the 7 buyout. Maybe he plays for that, but even if he does, do you want to have that in the way of this youth movement and everything else, trending the other direction? I don't know how you do it. And that's sad to say because of what he's meant to some of these young guys and what he's meant to this franchise and the fans over the years. But, at some point you just got to move on. And the Reds are probably, in my opinion, they're at that point.
It's going to be a hard one. I'm gonna probably shed a tear when he hangs him up, and if he ends up playing for another team, I think that may hurt just as bad.
Yeah, I don't know that he would.
I don't either.
He's talked at length about how much it means to him to spend his whole career with one franchise, and because. Look, he's given it a go. He's at an age now where that's tough. That's a grind. 162 games, playing baseball, doing it, and for him, I was worried about him coming back at all this year. After that was a very serious shoulder deal he had, and 2 thumbs up to him and everything else for grinding his way back and getting to where he could play again and be productive and hit home runs and help the team. That's tough. I mean, it would have been so easy for him last year after that surgery and just been, you know what? It's been a great career, and it has. I don't need to go through this. Do I need to go through this for maybe something that doesn't work out? And maybe I'm revealing a little bit about myself here to the golf course. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot to put into that rehab and all that. And Lord knows I've done enough rehab this year with knees and necks and everything else. So I don't know.
I just looked it up. He's going to be 40 on September 10th.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a career. It's a hell of a run. And I don't know how much. I mean, look, for your everyday person, he's still an elite athlete, right? Yeah. But absolutely. Playing the major leagues, 162 games a year with a bunch of 23-year-olds, whoo, that's another animal. And gosh, I just that's a tough one to see him playing more after this season. It really is.
So, who do they have after the Giants?
Did the Cubs come in?
I'm checking right now.
I think Friday they got that. Is it Friday?
Yes.
They have the day night doubleheader.
Friday is 1:10 and 6:40, and then Saturday at 6:40 again, and Sunday at 12:10. They are hosting the Cubs before the Seattle Mariners get to town after that. and we'll be back here in the middle of that series.
Maybe we can talk about Luis Castillo or something.
Maybe we can talk about that they rattled off some wins that we did not see coming.
Exactly. 6 wins in a row.
I'll be totally good with that. But
that would be fun.
Yeah, hell yeah, because they're against teams that matter between the Giants and the Cubs. Absolutely.
But then I think about what they're going to be thrown out on the mound, and Aaron, I just don't see it.
See, you took it the other way.
I know. I don't want to end on a downer. 6-game winning streak. That's
everything I got as far as Bearcats, Bengals, and Reds. I know there was some other stuff that you had talked about potentially wanting to get to.
Yeah, but it's just I was excited about high school football kicking off in this town, which is a big deal. And there's some games coming up this week, and nothing major. I'll tell you one that intrigues me. Lakota West, Fairfield. Both have started 0-2. Lakota West is loaded. Now, they lost a lot on offense. They lost their quarterback from last year, Mitch Bolden, the coach's son. But they play Moeller at East Central. East Central coming off state championship. Moeller with a new coach. Can East Central do it again? I don't know. And then over here, Cubcalf knocked off Highlands. The Colonels playing Simon Kenton this week. That should be a fun game. I also think over here, Beechwood and Dixie playing should be a fun game. And, of course, Chad would kill me if I don't bring up his Lloyd Juggernaut. The Jugs off to a good start, so hopefully they keep it going.
Kicking ass. Beat up on Newcastle and Boone County. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm glad you jumped in on that. You got a running back that ran for like 1,000 yards last week.
So, my best friend is like, hey, let's go to the game Friday night. They redid the stadium. They redid the turf. They got new press box. Like, I'm fired up about.
You should go.
I might head out Friday night after. I might head out Friday night. I got radio for Mo, so maybe I'll head to Cecil D's Memorial Stadium.
That's right.
The Juggernauts.
That's right. Right off I-75, baby. I'm going to head to Ludlow and see the red turf. Have you heard about that?
I've heard.
Yeah. I was going to go to the opener. They had the opener a couple of weeks ago on the red turf, first game there, and somebody got COVID. So I couldn't go.
That guy.
Remember the last time I was on with you guys and I had that
hot
body and I'm like, I'm kind of, my voice was like weird.
That was COVID?
Apparently that was the beginning of it. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I know. So I'll make it down to Ludlow this. So that's all I got. FC Cincinnati won again. They're running away with this Eastern Conference. And I know, Aaron, that's something you're keeping an eye on. And they play tomorrow night.
I went to Northwest High School over on the west side, and they have not really made noise, maybe ever.
Northwest has not.
Not since I was
They had that weird rule, though, right? Like all the football players went to Coleraine. It was like the Northwest School District.
It wasn't a rule. That was just what happened. That's
yeah. It was an open. Was it like open enrollment? Like
we like to call that recruiting at Northwest High School.
Well, you need to talk to Coach Combs about that because I think he started that.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Hey, it worked.
Yeah, well, I think 2001 we were actually not terrible. I think they were 9-1 that year. I think we even had a receiver that set a state record or something, Mark Burr, way back in the day. But
there's been some players come out of there. I'm trying to remember. There was
a linebacker that played for the Bengals.
Preston Brown.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes.
Not too long ago. So.
Right.
Anyway.
Was committed to
unless
UC
you got any,
and then was committed to UC and then decommitted and went to Louisville.
You're not bitter or anything.
Right. That's right.
Well, do you have anything else then, George?
Good family, though. Good family. What?
You have anything else tonight?
Nope, I'm good, man. I'm going to go watch the Redlegs start that winning streak we talked about.
Well, with that, that is your very first episode of George in the Jungle. Hope you enjoyed. Join us next Tuesday at 9 p.m. And we're going to do it all over again, talking all of your Cincinnati sports. Thanks to George for getting this thing together. I appreciate it. Enjoyed working with you tonight. Looking forward to seeing how this thing develops. And we will see you back here on the Bearcat Journal Network. See you Tuesday.
Bye-bye.